So hi everyone, very good afternoon. This is Ajay Ramasubramaniam here, and I have with me three wonderful fellow panelists, and we'll be all sharing some insights and throwing light on our experiences with accelerators and programs, their sustainability, and some of the do's and don'ts, all coming through first-hand experience. Uh, we have with us Sanjay Mehta, who is the founder managing partner of 100x.vc. We have with us Dr. Balachandran, who is the Vice President at ISBA. And then we have Vijay, who is from IRMA and who manages incubators and accelerators. So, three very different perspectives. One wearing an investor's hat who has been dealing and engaging with incubators and accelerators and entrepreneurs for a fairly long time. Someone who has himself been operating programs, and then Bala, who can share his insights depending on, basis his engagements or his talks with fellow incubators and programs run under ISBA. So, welcome to my panelists. If you can just go around very briefly introducing yourself and the kind of work that we do, that would be awesome. So, Sanjay, if we can begin with you.
Sure. Thanks, Ajay. So I'm part of 100x.vc. We are a first check SEBI registered fund. In our launch since last year, July, we have invested in 29 startups and we plan to invest into 100 startups every year. So actively working in the early stage ecosystem.
Thanks, Sanjay. Vijay.
Hi Ajay and everyone, I am Vijay. I represent A Idea, which is an agri-tech incubator out of NAM, National Academy of Agricultural Research Management, out of Hyderabad. We also run an accelerator called AgriUdan. We were the first to launch India's first accelerator called AgriUdan. We ran 3 series of accelerators since 2015. We also have an equity fund to invest in agri-tech startups. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. Bala.
Yeah, hi Ajay and fellow panelists and participants. So I work for VIT Technology Business Incubator. So I'm in the incubation arena from 2003, and this 2018 onwards, I'm part of ISBA's GB. Earlier, I had two stints with the GB, but this time as a vice president, and so we coordinate several capacity building programs for the member incubators and incubators.
Thanks, Bala. So we have a few questions. So I have about 6, 7 of them lined up, and we'll try to cover a fair bit of ground around a few things. I'll begin with Sanjay, and because you talked about first check investments that you're making, and you also spoke about regulatory or SEBI and things like that. What I want to touch upon is that do you feel, I mean, as someone who has been dealing with incubators and accelerators for a very long time in different capacities, do you feel there is a need for a governing body or an institution that monitors accelerators and incubators in India and kind of collects different kind of empirical evidence, puts it together so that incubators and accelerators can function better and churn out better quality companies?
I don't think so. We need one more committee or one more organization doing this. I think it should be best left across to the incubators and many of the program managers like yourself to help them out and give a framework to how to operate and build a successful startups. I think what they need is more investor visiting across their campuses, more startups getting funded, more mentor engagements, external, speakers coming and inspiring entrepreneurs. I think it's more. I think more driven through the VC ecosystem today. Most of the VCs have been, struggling with the deal flow, and accelerators are not able to reach out to the VC ecosystem very closely. I think that bridge is something which is required and which program managers like Startup Rezo can do it much effectively. I'm not in favor of one more committee.
Vijay, as someone who has set up different programs, and from what you would see around you in the ecosystem, what are your thoughts about gathering this whole evidence piece of things and improving on an ongoing or a regular basis? How do you see it as an operator?
To a certain extent, I think it is important at this stage, because I guess probably these accelerators all came in picture last 5 to 7 years roundabout. And what I see, most of these accelerators could be almost If you see, number of incubators could be more than 400 in India, but the accelerators could be between 30 to 70, depending on all the sectors. But since the accelerators are slowly emerging and they have their own claims, I think to a certain extent, certain data is to be collected. But having said that, there's already a global platform that exists, which is Global Accelerator Learning Initiative, which is called GALI GALI, which runs a lot of data around the accelerators, and they publish a lot of information about globally, wherein a lot of Indian-based incubators and accelerators are also captured. But having said that, possibly at this time, some kind of information has to be captured. But on the other side, I also see a lot of funding agencies like DST and the other funding agencies which have been supporting the accelerators have been kind of mapping all the incubators and the performance at the institutional level. But we are yet to see that these institutions would publish this information in the coming time. This would be of help, for all the operators to kind of create some kind of benchmark and operate at that level.
Sure. So taking the same question to Bala, and because you wear a couple of hats, one of being someone who is running an incubator on campus, but at the same time being on the governing council of a body like ISBA, and the fact that ISBA is hosting this along with DST, bringing together different incubator managers and CEOs to kind of help them understand probably the difference between an incubator and an accelerator, and how do you kind of successfully churn out a better quality program, because the government is definitely putting in money into creating these accelerator initiatives. But like what the folks at CIIE spoke about earlier about different metrics to look at, and also from the kind of questions that have been coming, what is your whole thought process around ISBA as an enabler of incubators to help incubators become better quality in terms of churning out companies, but also going the next level to create accelerators, because accelerators typically would be very different in terms of the output that they provide to entrepreneurs and startups. So wearing the ISBA hat, what are your thoughts around this monitoring, evaluation, and improving the quality of programs?
Yeah. The very purpose of this program is to create a certain level of awareness and sensitization. You have also hit it on the nail on the other day that accelerator need not be everyone's cup of tea. Looking at the necessity at the ground, the need, demand. So there are several aspects of it. And coming back to the primary question, do we need certain metrics for the performance of accelerators? I would say yes, because until 4 or 5 years ago, as Vijay mentioned, the accelerator was mostly confined to the corporate accelerators, they ran it for their internal business purposes. It could be CSR or it could be for innovation scouting. For whatever it is, they had their own set objectives. They were funding it and they were running it. And their internal, the stakeholders, I'm sure they had certain metrics to budget it and give the fund for next year. So likewise, it's also very reasonable and fair when DST or other bodies support accelerator. Eventually, they would like to know the outcomes impact after a couple of years. I am not talking about policing. I think Sanjay kind of mentioned the committee governing, and I understand his thought process, but policing is not the one. But can it be an exercise for peer benchmarking, understanding the nitty-gritties, understanding the weakness, and learning from that and improving the next cycle of programs? So with this backdrop, I definitely see a reason for having some metrics and framework associated with it.
The only metrics what Ajay works in startup is how many unicorns did you produce, right? That's the only metrics what anybody would look into. And if any incubator can claim across saying that, okay, these are 1, 2, 3 incubators, I think they have got success.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. So that actually brings me to the next question. And see, I mean, Sanjay, as an investor and who has put in money in more than 100 odd companies before setting up a 100x and having a couple of unicorns or probably more in his portfolio, definitely knows a thing or two about identifying companies early on. And probably the standard KPI which kind of talks about success is the ability to churn out good quality companies. But if I were to ask Bala and Vijay, in terms of, say, KPIs that you would look at in terms of a program which is performing well, what are the things that you would touch upon? So Vijay, if we can hear from you.
Sure. So since we're an agri-focused, I'll kind of be very sector-specific because that is where our specialty lies. But most of the KPIs that we would look at the program, if we were to gauge an incubator or accelerator, or for that matter, the startups also, we would look at the number of startups that are accommodated in the cohort. Number two, the startups that get funded, because that's a primary metric which most of the accelerators do, quote unquote. Number three, the number of patents that they're able to generate during accelerator and after accelerator, because that is where the whole value creation and valuation and these things are we are talking about. And fourth is in terms of the traction and network, because when you're talking about accelerators, as an AI idea itself, we run both incubator accelerator. When we have both the shops, we should be able to say demarcatedly that this is because of these KPIs that the startup has really grown well. So obviously there's a lot to attribute for the network that you're able to provide as an accelerator distinctively from the incubator. And also the fifth, the quality of mentoring, hand-holding that goes in terms of acceleration, because there's a secret sauce, that has to be kind of put into the company to make sure that the company actually is able to raise funds, grow fast, scale, and also able to reach out to new markets and possibly reinvent itself, because you're probably scaling the companies which are already doing well, but probably are helping them to scale further. So these are a couple of KPIs that we would probably look at.
Bala?
Yeah, I think the Indian model of acceleration itself, in my personal view, to be revisited. The Western models will not have a direct one-to-one correspondence here. My suggestion would be, I think we need to look at the relevance of local acceleration. So on the other day, again, you mentioned what is point A to point B. So again, with respect to making these companies successful in terms of access to market and access to funding, so if those point A's and point B's are clearly defined, and there is an element, it may not be 100x in the case of Indian tech startup, which enters an incubator and accelerator with a bare minimum POC without much of other kinds of support. I think we need to revisit those frameworks, and probably we may have to even create a separate framework for Indian acceleration. I have complete respect on what has been told as the need for creating unicorns in the country, but in the dream of creating unicorns, we should not even forget about our horses who are ready to run the local races and address their requirements. I think, in my view, those things are essential for Indian acceleration.
I think that is essentially very important for sectors like agriculture that we run. So that is why we actually do a lot of customer immersion track. We do it with a lot of farmers. So that's very important and also pertinent to the Indian ecosystem.
I think because Bala also mentioned 100x. So 100x now is a patented name. So we should be careful while using 100x. No, but continuing on that, so because Sanjay has also invested, being a tech investor, they've also put in money in agri-tech startups. So I guess even agri-tech is becoming fairly mainstream in that way, because a lot of investors are definitely looking at different, farm to fork is a very broad kind of a domain, but technology is increasingly playing a key role, right, in the entire value chain. So Sanjay, because they've touched upon agri-tech, and because you've seen agri-tech startups as well closely, do you think there is a disparity in the different kind of companies, and the methodology or hypothesis has to be different when you're talking of accelerator?
No, I don't think so as much. My take on the metric side, again, I think there are two things. One is, the valuation of the startups getting continuously increased so that they are well capitalized. And the second is the kind of job creation. And that will only happen if there is a scale. So that I think perspective, and many of the college-based incubators, right, which are trying to help all the college students with newer ideas. Many of the alumni who are not part of their incubator are quite successful, but most of the colleges are unable to actually leverage that except IITs. So I think that part of it, where even if they were not part of your incubator program, but if they are an alumni of your institution, there is a huge amount of value creation which those founders can bring into your incubator, and that association which I feel is quite missing across in that sense. And from an agri-tech, we are extremely bullish on the space, and with the new reforms which has come in across, we feel that agri will be accelerated, and quite a lot of interest is there. And in fact, in both of our class 1 and class 2, we had agri-tech startups. So we are very, very bullish on the space.
So continuing from the previous question where we touched upon KPIs and indicators. So Sanjay, I mean, as someone who has been on the other side where you have accessed a funnel of companies coming through incubators and accelerators. Yes, I mean, to your point, a successful accelerator is one which can put out companies that have kind of shown good traction, that have been successful in terms of generating revenues, and they're going after a big opportunity. But what do you actually expect from accelerators in terms of the value add that they're providing to companies? What do you think, or what do you see as a refined or a finished product where there are those finishing touches given by these accelerators? What are those areas in which accelerators can really help companies as an investor when you view it?
Sure. So many of these accelerators are great at, shipping out tech products, or, helping the companies refine their product side of it. But most of the startup founders where we see misses their business side of it, finance side of it. So I think a lot of them do not even know how to, price the product, the business model. So those side of the business is completely missing with most of the incubators. And I would say most would be 95% of them. They don't have any education or understanding on how to manage finance. You ask them on a basic burn, they don't know how to even calculate a burn, right? So, I mean, these are the basic fundamentals of building blocks for any startups. See, all the institutions who are associated, they proudly brand saying that we have got 100% placement, but never ever they will show a face of an entrepreneur saying that, okay, we have created 100 entrepreneurs. So that's how the institution mindset is. So I think ground up that needs to be overhauled, where entrepreneurship is celebrated, more rather than 100% placement or job offers which are being done across.
Yeah, and also the point that you had covered earlier that I mean, there might be successful entrepreneurs coming out of campuses, but they may not necessarily have been a part of your incubator accelerator. How can you kind of leverage that? How can you kind of probably use them for inspiring more people to kind of become entrepreneurs, and yeah, using them as the cover page or the poster boy, poster girl, whoever. I mean,
that is going to be quite an inspiring stories, right?
Yeah.
And you can have enough of that. One success breeds another 100 success.
Yeah. So my question then to Bala is, so yes, great that you're doing capacity building as ISBA, you're doing capacity building programs like these, and there are other interventions also that ISBA constantly brings in for its members. And because DST also over a period of time has kind of been setting aside funds for helping a lot of these TBIs or technology business incubators to also take up the mantle of helping companies at the next level to kind of churn out those accelerators and push out better quality companies which are more fundable. I think in that context, what is the role that you see ISBA playing to help members further? I mean, these are like 3 days and 4 day kind of workshops, which is great. But in the long run, how do you see playing a role for enabling a broader infrastructure development as far as the incubator ecosystem goes, or accelerator ecosystem goes?
Yeah, I think there is a need also for doing a demand analysis. So these interventions go a long way in giving policy inputs to the respective agencies we work with. So unless there is a clear demand established, the intent is not to position the DST incubators or DPT incubators against the commercial accelerators. That's not the agenda here. That also not possible. So, but can we inculcate this acceleration abilities in the most incubators? So we could even come out with kind of a hybrid model of incubator, where in the incubation period itself is quite shortened. Instead of the traditional 3 to 5 years model, can we shorten this and come up with learn the best practices from acceleration programs and adopt some of that. And so if at least these 2-3 major issues are addressed, getting the first client or the validation grounds, and also getting at least angel to the seed investments. So those aspects, if they're well covered, I think most incubation programs would take off. As Sanjay pointed out, it's a ground reality. Most colleges have the flair for not celebrating entrepreneurship in equal footing to that of, so that's the larger societal mindset, which again needs to be. So this is where the ISBA's role come alongside government. We also do a lot of sensitization programs. So whenever our annual conferences take place, we bring and bringing a lot of changes taken place in the last 5 years. We also seen many progressive institutions setting on their own instead of waiting for the government. Earlier, the incubation initiative was mainly to enhance their institutional capacity building in terms of R&D infrastructure and also for the accreditation purposes. But things are changing. I'm aware of several private managements who have gone on their own, even to provide 20,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet of space in metros, where space is a premium and which could be put for other academic purposes, but they are showing interest. So I think by and large, a lot of sensitization, awareness creation, and alongside some policy incentives and in the process, can we invent some newer model of incubation? So these are all the avenues we have.
So you just came up with a new term as well, incurator. So that
yeah,
we need one more category. So okay, so I'll go to the next question to Sanjay. So Sanjay, I mean, for a very long time you have been not consciously setting up a program, or you're not kind of wanting to kind of become a structured VC. And eventually you kind of made the shift from being a serial angel investor to setting up 100x.vc, and you have now got into the race where you're attracting a lot of applications. So I kind of we have spoken, and you have it is well documented that for the first cohort you received like 1,200 applications, the second cohort you received like 2,000 applications. So I think the challenge for accelerators also is, I mean, just like what you're doing, you're building a cohort. I guess for anyone who is setting up a program, I guess one of the biggest things to do is get like really good quality applications to come in, so that whoever you're backing, either as a first check investor or as a program, you're able to select good quality companies. But that you can only do if you have the problem of plenty. So how do you kind of create this problem of plenty to attract so many applications? How did you go about it?
So just to correct numbers, in our class 1, we got across 1982 applications. Okay. In our class 2, we got across 4,875 applications. So currently we are running our class 3. The partnership plays a big role. So we have been partnering with various incubators, accelerators across India, and that gives us good feeder because we write quick checks. We have got something which is called iSafe notes, where we are able to structure the investment documentation in such a simple way where, over the counter we can close a deal. We don't need a long, lengthy shareholder agreements with draconian rights to engage across. So that helps us kind of cut the ice. And we do quite a lot of not-for-profit initiatives. Like, for example, we run founders dating, where we help founders get their co-founders. Now we got across 600 odd applications in our last cohort, where we could manage and help across all these people with the dating to get the right co-founder. We are now launching across an entrepreneurship Gurukul, whereby online, free of course, again, these are of no charge. We ensure that founders will be getting best of the courses on learning entrepreneurship, be it across on finance, marketing, business model. So that should go live somewhere in December or maybe early Jan kind of stuff. So we are working hard on building those programs so that so the way I see across is you should be giving first and then thinking across of getting something back. So I think that attitude of giving first has helped us as a 100x to get a lot of applications. And we have good social media following. We do quite a lot of 100x live programs where we invite across and do sessions with thought leaders. So all this has been a good soliciting exercise where if you go to 100x LinkedIn post, you will see regular updates on it. And you so recently, for example, I published a blog on how to give out advisory equity, right, and what to work upon. Now that has got fantastic kind of engagement because it's a real insight on a practical how a startup can give advisory or mentorship equity and how to structure it, and for even for advisors. So I think startup working is not a single variable problem. You need to be engaged in every front. Then only all these things can work across.
Vijay, your inputs on that. I mean, having set up a few programs over the years, how and because it is all the more reason because you're very thematic in terms of soliciting purely agri-tech companies. So is getting applications challenge? How do you kind of go about mitigating the risk of getting lesser applications or running close to the due date of starting a program and not having applications? I'm sure we all have kind of come across that. So how do you kind of overcome getting applications, good applications?
Getting application, fortunately, the last 3 accelerators we've ran has never been an issue. But usually, if you talk about the numbers, Agridan 1, we got around 200 applications, 192 to be precise. Agridan 2, 2017, we received around 579 applications. Agridan 3, slightly the number reduced, of course, because there were a number of increasing incubators and accelerators in agriculture, but the number fall to 415. But the quality also was really good. At least I would say around 40% of the applications were good in quality, because at the end of the day, in every accelerator, we would ideally take around a cohort of 10 companies in the accelerator cohort. So the number and quality were always good. But having said that, not to be at ease, irrespective of whether we got the numbers or not, we were always doing a lot of mobilization. Once we launch a program, we involved government stakeholders, corporates, partnerships, because the first accelerator we did, India's first accelerator, which we did only with CIM Ahmedabad. This was the first of its kind. We were also in a learning curve in 2015. Then the second accelerator we did, we realized that the network and partnerships really build a lot of value. That's where we had a lot of technology partners, a lot of companies, investors, a lot of other partners as a part of our accelerator program, were not only able to help us in the program, processes, network, outreach, referrals, but also hand-holding to the startups, because they got a wide spectrum of expertise. The third accelerator also, we enhanced the partnerships and network further. Added to it, along with the partnerships, we also do a lot of roadshows, physical roadshows, pan-India, along with the program launches. The third is we do a lot of digital marketing, search engine optimization, and a lot of social media marketing. That is the way we outreach. Beyond that, we also do a lot of emailer marketing, those kind of activities where our marketing team takes a lot of focus. Beyond that, we also realized that reaching out to key agri institutions was also a very important aspect, because as a part of Incubate Accelerator, we are connected to this part of the world, but also we have to touch base to our own core network of agri institutions, which could be a typical agri research institution or an agri university, or those kind of ecosystem which are not totally aware of these incubator accelerator ecosystems, but they could also potentially have some scientists or entrepreneurs, some kind of entrepreneurs who are willing to scale. They could be someone who could have kind of figured out. In the whole process, what we also did after running through accelerators is possibly going to tier 2 cities also. The first 2 accelerators, because of bandwidth, we didn't go, but we also realized at certain stage that beyond metros, we also need to hit to the cities, rural cities, or some kind of tier 2 cities, wherein we went to core agri belts, Nasik or Chandigarh or these kind of belts, or Northeast, Guwahati, these kind of places we went to make sure that we also touch base entrepreneurs across India. So that way we were able to tap a wide spectrum of entrepreneurs, because being an agri-tech incubator, we focus around 14 spectrums of agriculture. These 14 sectors are wide enough, farm gate to food plate. Innovations literally working on agri and allied sectors, dairy, fisheries, animal husbandry. So these are very, very wide, and we are open to all in the accelerator. So having that kind of proclamation, we were open to kind of reach out to all kind of terrains, core agri terrains, agri institutions, and partnerships. I think these were certain aspects that we took care to be able to make sure that we have good amount of numbers and also quality. Yeah.
Great. Bala, do you want to add something to that? Your experiences getting application. So I do see that ISBA also supports a lot of its members by sending out those mailers whenever there are call for applications and programs. So I'm sure that that will help members in percolating deeper into the ecosystem and kind of having 150 incubator members as ISBA alone, I think that's a lot of strength and support that you offer to your incubator members or incubator partners. But any pointers that you want to cover as far as getting applications goes? Bala, you're on mute.
A couple of issues and challenges we need to look at. The primary issue is the location. So if the location of the incubator is tier 2 or tier 3, obviously getting good quality applications consistently, the kind of numbers spoken about is going to be extremely challenging. But the primary design of the incubator is not to only address those kind of numbers. It's also, there's a bigger purpose of serving that particular region. Or most campus business incubators look at some of their promising students and even inculcating the culture of entrepreneurship in the campus. So, but now by and large, what I see is piggybacking on the grant programs of Government of India. This Biotechnology Ignition Grant of DBT, also this PRIAS, the MITES POC. So a lot of interest. I could see even incubators in remote corners are in a position to attract applications from other parts of the country and other metros. So this has helped them to get some good quality applications. At the second level, what happens when these companies are present in the non-metro incubators, it also provides a dynamic interaction with the local potential groups, and this serves as a motivation for second level. So numbers may not be very high in non-metros, but metros you also have the challenges present in clusters like Hyderabad, Bangalore, and so there again the issue of quality versus quantity will remain, because for a same pool, number of incubators will be in the pipeline. So that issue is also there. So I think somewhere we need to look at some balancing proposition in the long run.
Got it. So with that, I'll come to my second last question, and I think this is more got to do with, and because we also have Dr. Suresh who has joined us now, who can share perspective both of PSG as well as being the head of ISBA and having been around for a while, looking at incubators across the country. So, and this again may not really have a common answer or a right answer, wrong answer. So we'll go Suresh, Vijay, and Bala. How would you evaluate, or how would you weigh financial returns versus economic returns, or innovation-related returns, IPs and things like that, for an accelerator program? What is more important for you? Companies which go out and probably they get venture funded, and you can say, hey, there's a company which raised say $100 million. Is that something more important, or I have 5 companies which have kind of filed IP, and this is the kind of research or innovation that is happening, which gives a better profile for the program. In your individual kind of views, which one is something that is more closer to you as an operator? Can start with Suresh.
You're on mute, sir.
Sorry for joining late. I had another meeting which extended. It's the question that Ajay has asked us. It's a long debate that happens years together. And I have my own perspective. And as you rightly mentioned, that at our operator level kind of perspectives, right? Whether you are raising funds, or whether you are raising IP, or whether you are generating IPs, or whether you are going to commercialize the technology or transfer the technology. You have a lot of jargons in our startup ecosystem, which has developed over a period of 2-3 decades, right? And now, very recently, people started talking about creating unicorns, how many unicorns you are going to develop in your incubators and things like that. And at some point of time, I always have a feel that whether incubators it becomes a hotspot or a single spot to do everything, right? If some agencies are sending some survey, they're asking how many technology you have transferred, how many technology you have commercialized, how many patents you have developed, and how many unicorns you have come up, and how many companies you have raised funds. if you put right for all these questions, if an incubation center wants to answer, then the number of incubators that we have should end up with 3 digits or more than that, right? And if you look at the capacity, this is one thing. It's like a vision, or it's an audacious expectations from the incubation center. On the other hand, if you look at the capacity that an incubation center has to do it, right, it's very difficult. So my personal opinion is, whenever we are starting an incubation center, we have an objective. Any incubation center starts with an objective, or over a period of time after initial challenges, right? Because usually somebody prepares a proposal and somebody implements that proposal, right? So once the balancing has been done, initial hiccups has been done. If you look at, there is some objectives towards each of the incubators starts working on that. And my opinion is we have to stick on to that objective, whether it is technology commercialization is your objective, or raising funds is your objective, or generating IPs is your objectives, or ensuring that your startups have come to you at an ideation stage and you have encouraged them and you have ensured that their product has gone into the market. That may be your objective, right? So my opinion is, what are the objectives that for which your incubation center has been established? Stick on to that, and you give yourself some goals or some benchmarks, and you move towards that, and have your own targets and move towards that. Don't get carried away with the peer-to-peer pressure or whatever that comes in the newspapers, right? Don't get benchmarked with that news and carried away. We have seen many of the startups which have raised 10 crores of funding have failed, right? So if funding is one of the benchmark, then always then we'll say that success is related to the money, right? So I still remember Mr. Mittal's quote in most of the meetings. He used to say that idea is chasing money and money is chasing ideas, and it's always happening, right? So my input is stick on to your fundamentals for which your incubation center has, and wherever possible, take some deviations, introduce some new programs, right? If you are capable of doing an accelerator program, do it, or if you are happy with whatever you are doing it, stick on to that. This is my learnings after seeing various jargons, various programs, initiatives, right? And now come to a stage and started talking philosophy. So
Vijay?
I think now, before going to Bala, I want to hear from Vijay, who is that young chap who have come very recently, right? Within last 5 years, and we can see dynamism, right?
Yeah.
I want to hear from you, Vijay.
I think rightly said, sir. I'm also literally coherent with your thoughts as well. I think most of the accelerators that you talk about a cohort of companies, a focused bunch of 10, 12, 15 companies, right? And at the end of the day, every accelerator comes with a funding proposition that X number of companies got funded. But usually I believe any accelerator, obviously when you have 200, 250, 600 companies entering in your accelerator, you get a bunch of 10 companies, and at the end of the day, the story is X amount of 5, 10 companies getting funded. Obviously, when the input is right, the outcome is going to be right. So, Ajay, to answer your question, funding is just an outcome of the entire process that is taken. So, fundamentally, during the accelerator program, the construct on the online evaluation to physical evaluation, entire cohort and capacity building, all these parameters of the initial elements of the accelerator are designed fundamentally to screen problem statements, good teams who are solving these problems with good innovations, and of course with some potential IPs, because those are the things which obviously an investor would also look at, right? A potential problem statement with a great market opportunity and good team trying to come up with very unique proposition of product and with good market potential, obviously, which will scale and which will be like a hot cake for all the customers, would obviously get funding. So obviously we realize that if these things are focused in the early stage, obviously the outcome of funding will come, right? And that is why every accelerator that we did, because obviously every accelerator will have a large funnel to support, right? When you take 200 or 200 to 500 companies in the accelerator, you are getting 10 companies to get focus, mentoring, handholding, and scale up support to be able to get funding. So if all these processes, the initial inputs are taken into consideration, so obviously the output of funding is going to fall right. So obviously the answer is going to be the innovation or IP focus or any customer focus first, and funding as an outcome of this, which is the second.
Bala, your closing remarks on this question?
Yeah, my personal opinion, funding is one of the resources to build a business. So funding is not the ultimate purpose for which the business is built. That's why I initially said that there is no need to ape Western models. We need to have our own fundamentals here. So the actual purpose of a business is to get a customer and sell products or service and make money. So whether it is incubator or accelerator, the point B is very, very clearly the business is surviving and serving, and the scale is different. In an accelerator, the ambitious growth of 10x, 50x or 100x is different, but post incubation, are they in a position to survive in the market, survive competition, and stay relevant in the market? I think that's the fundamental indicator we need to look at very closely. So with that, I'll end here. Thanks, Ajay.
Thanks. So with that, I'll come to the last question, and I'll bring it to Sanjay. So we've talked about startups, their ability to kind of survive, scale, and whatnot. Let us kind of turn this around a little bit. Let us talk about accelerators as businesses. So I, for one, definitely believe that if we are going to teach people to build good scalable businesses, I think accelerators themselves need to be sustainable financially. They need to have a business model. So Sanjay, I mean, I just want to hear your views as an investor who's kind of seen different kind of models, right from the academic ones which are having incubators to privately run accelerators to international ones which have tried and brought their model to India, and some are working, some are not. What are your thoughts around the business and financial sustainability of accelerators themselves?
See, idea is, Ajay, unless accelerators have a mindset of building the company to a value, the resultant outcome of a financial success only can, give that stability to the accelerator, right? So, end of the day, again, it comes down to boiling to saying that how quickly the startup can raise money, capital, be successful. And that rub-off effect will work on the accelerator, and the model can be in multiple ways, be it equity led, be it fee led, royalty led. So I mean, there are multiple models which are existing across, and so the way I would say, this is like a accelerator has to be thought across like a finishing school, right?
Yeah.
So if they are going to do the job of finishing or giving that startup an edge, right, and do that mentoring and become a driving force, then I think they should be well paid. And there has to be an economics involved into their whole aspect. Unless there is an infinite charity which is coming from government.
Okay, so I'll now bring to the three people who are operators on the other side, and let us take your perspectives on what has your experience been with financial sustainability of the program that you're running. If any kind of government funding were to be taken away, do you still feel that running a program is possible, not just for a few months or a year or so, but at a stretch of say 3 years, 5 years? How do you kind of foresee running a program sustainably without government support? So we can start with maybe Vijay, and we'll close with Dr. Suresh.
Okay. So you're talking about sustainability of the accelerators, if I get it right.
Financial sustainability, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, because we were working on the agri space, as Sanjay said, that none of the accelerators are blessed with unlimited government funding. We definitely acknowledge that. But initial days when you're starting an incubator and accelerator, it's too much a lot for an incubator, which is trying to struggle and sustain. We are just 5-year-old incubator, trying to build incubator, trying to do accelerator, trying to do funding, everything you're learning, you're doing. So it's so difficult. And honestly, we are only funded for the incubator. But later we realized that we need to raise some kind of program funding for the accelerators. DST and other agencies came forward. But in the initial days of being an agri accelerator, we chose not to take neither fee or equity. It is very strange, but also we chose not to take neither fee or equity. But how we survived, or how we kind of made sure we ran accelerators, is where we have raised some funding from the government. But having said that, we also raised some kind of corporate sponsorships for the accelerator as a program. These are the first 3 accelerators we did. But as we go forward, we definitely realized that the sustainability of accelerators will be important. And that is where, because we have a successful track record of each cohort getting around 3 to 5 companies getting funded out of 10. So obviously we have a good track record, good strike rate. So obviously we'll have a good command, and also AgriUDAN as a known accelerator. So obviously in the coming time, we should be able to go with another instruments of either fee or equity or service charge model that we already had in mind, but we did not enact it. But hopefully in the coming AgriUDAN 4 and all, we should be able to get this in place. Yeah.
Bala, your thoughts?
Yeah, the short response is I think the sustainability entirely depends on the team. If the team is entrepreneurial, they will figure out ways to align the program in related revenue generation sources beyond this core incubation or acceleration. I think by and large there is a large need for heavily subsidizing incubation. Having spent 17 years, even today our services are heavily subsidized for core incubation, but we have ways and means to figure out the non-grant resources for running the program, which I think it entirely boils down to the entrepreneurial abilities of the team.
Got it. And we'll wind up with so I was having a chat with Dr. Suresh the other day, and he's not just a veteran, probably there is something beyond that in terms of running incubators and accelerators. He's like, I've been sitting in this part of this building for the last 22 years. So I'm sure that he has seen a lot of things over the last couple of decades. And I'm sure that you have come across many instances where financial sustainability would have popped up its ugly head, or it would have made you think through. So what are your experiences? And as someone who is now overseeing or interacting with 150 odd incubator members under ISBA, I'm sure that a lot of them, they come up with these questions time and again, and you must be trying to find interventions. So what are your closing remarks on the financial sustainability part of people who are operating programs?
See, even today morning, I went through my balance sheet and income and expenditure, and we also had a detailed discussion about where we stand, right? And there is no single solution. And this year, we are facing a different kind of challenges for the financial sustainability. I look at sustainability in two terms. One is financial sustainability. The second one is organizational sustainability. How I'm going to separate is financial sustainability. I can generate revenue by doing many programs, conferences, everything, right? I generate money and then I can be financially sustainable. Organizational sustainability is how my infrastructure, my equipments, how it has been occupied, one. The second thing is utilization, occupancy versus utilization, right? So earlier, Bala said we have subsidized right, for the incubation services. Means that we subsidize to increase our occupancy level, increase our utilization level, and do other programs in generating revenue for our sustainability. But post-COVID, what I experienced is even the utilization and occupancy itself. That means that organization as an incubation center, right? None of the external world will know about financial sustainability, right? Even our management can support us, unless always the board members will know how much we have generated, how much we have done it. But as an incubator, right, what is our occupancy level and what is the utilization level, right? That itself becomes a question mark now. And I think most of us should focus on how are we going to increase our footfalls in our incubation center. And as Bala always worries about subsidizing, whether we have to further subsidize our activities to have incubators coming in. And most of the co-working places, most of the IT-based startups, right, having them in our place will be a question mark for the next 6 months or so. And if they got used to those kind of practices, then whether we have to have a different model. But surprisingly, I've seen electronic-based and bio-related incubation centers will not have any impact because people has to use the facility, no other go. So people who have been focusing on IT-based startups for their incubation center has to have another set of incubation center or activities for their sustainability as an incubation center. Right, at least for the initial few months, the management can support us in extending financial support. But we have to have 2-3 thrust areas. We should not put all eggs into one bucket. That's also applicable for the incubation center.
Correct.
A few thoughts.
Great. So I'll just wind up the panel questions right now. And if we have any of our attendees wanting to ask questions, I think we can open up the floor. We probably have another 10 minutes, so we can take up some questions. And if people have, so yeah, people please shoot. So you can type in the questions in the question panel. or probably in the chat window, or do a raise of hand and we'll bring you on stage. If you do a raise of hand, I think that's the easier thing, and it would work faster as well. So I'm sure you would have some questions. Monil, anyone has sent you questions or anything?
I'm just checking it, not as of now.
No. Probably we can just hold on for a minute or two. If no one has questions, we can call this session closed. I'm sure there are a lot of points discussed, so someone would have some kind of query or question in their mind. No, I think no one has any questions, so no point just hanging around waiting. So thank you, Sanjay, for taking time, Dr. Bala, Vijay, and Dr. Suresh for finally making it despite your schedule. So thank you so much for sharing your views and perspectives around operating programs, its sustainability, the business model around running accelerators, and so on. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
On behalf of ISBA, I also take this opportunity to thank Sanjay Mehta, and I want him to once again. I want to see him at Coimbatore at PSG, because earlier he has visited about 4-5 years before, and had an interaction with our incubators. And even yesterday, we have a common contact, Mr. Prashant of Quadra System, who is one of our leading entrepreneurs in Coimbatore. Because of him, he has been there in our incubation center. So, Sanjay, look forward to host you once again in Coimbatore once everything becomes normal.
Look forward, Dr. Suresh. Look forward.
Yeah.
Thanks for this warm invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bala. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. I'll reach out to you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
right.
Vijay.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, sir.
Thanks, everyone. All right.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for the patient listening audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.